Ever wonder why even the smallest criticism feels like a gut punch? Or why you sometimes replay old arguments in your head like they're dramatic movie scenes you starred in? That's not just overthinking. That's leftover programming from childhood. If your parents were narcissists, congratulations! You've been unknowingly carrying three rare traits that most people either envy, fear, or completely misunderstand. These traits shape how you form relationships, handle stress, and even define your personal power in this chaotic world. And before we dive in, stick around until the end. I always highlight a favorite comment from the last video, and it might just be yours. So, what are these unusual traits? Let's start with the first one. Trait 1, the emotional radar. The first unusual trait is what I like to call the emotional radar. Growing up with narcissistic parents basically turns you into a human lie detector. You start noticing every flicker of emotion, every shift in tone, every tiny twitch in someone's expression because survival depended on it. A sigh, a raised eyebrow, even a pause in a sentence could signal danger. Imagine this. You're sitting at the dinner table, and your parent slams their fork down just slightly harder than usual. Most kids would keep eating without a second thought. But you freeze, scanning the situation like a detective piecing together a crime scene. You're already predicting whether this night will end with yelling, silent treatment, or if you'll need to retreat to your room and stay invisible. This level of awareness wasn't a choice, it was survival. You had to read the room faster than a professional poker player because your well-being depended on correctly predicting other people's moods. If you guessed wrong, the consequences could be brutal. Explosive anger, guilt trips, or emotional withdrawal. The upside of this radar? You're naturally intuitive. You can sense when someone isn't being genuine, detect hidden agendas, and even anticipate conflict before it erupts. People often say, "How did you know that?" when you point out subtle behaviors. It's not magic. It's hyper-trained perception. Maybe you've walked into a work meeting and instantly felt the tension in the room before anyone spoke. Or you've met someone new and just knew they weren't trustworthy, only to have your instincts proven right later. Your radar allows you to read people in ways they can't even read themselves. But let's talk about the cost. Constant vigilance is exhausting. Your brain rarely switches off. It's like having security cameras running 24/7 with no way to hit the off button. Even in safe environments, your mind is still scanning for danger that isn't there. It's like living with a dozen browser tabs open, each one analyzing people, situations, and potential threats. No wonder you feel drained after social gatherings or even casual conversations. Here's a relatable scenario. You're at a party, and someone makes a seemingly harmless joke at your expense. Most people laugh it off. You? You immediately start dissecting it. Was that meant as a joke, or was it a hidden insult? Are they trying to embarrass me? Did anyone else notice? Your radar doesn't just detect threats, it magnifies them, sometimes turning minor interactions into hours of internal overthinking. And it doesn't just show up in social situations. Ever notice how you can't relax at work when your boss is in a bad mood? Even if they don't say a word, you sense their frustration like a ripple in the air. Your body reacts before your brain even processes it. Heart racing, stomach tightening, ready for confrontation. That's your radar kicking in, a skill you didn't ask for but mastered out of necessity. But here's the plot twist. The very thing that once drained you can now empower you. As an adult, your radar makes you incredibly difficult to manipulate. You sniff out fake kindness, empty promises, and backhanded compliments like a bloodhound. While other people fall for charm or deceit, you pick up on the subtle cues that reveal the truth. Think of it like this. Someone might try to gaslight you by saying, "You're overreacting, that never happened." But deep down, you know exactly what you saw, heard, and felt. Your radar doesn't just detect lies, it protects you from falling into toxic traps again. Here's a personal story many people relate to. One woman I spoke to grew up with a narcissistic father who would explode in anger over the smallest things. As an adult, she went on a first date and instantly noticed her date's microexpressions when a waiter made a mistake. She saw the flash of irritation in his eyes before he even opened his mouth. While others might have brushed it off, her radar screamed danger. She ended the date early. Months later, she found out that same man had a history of controlling behavior. That's the power of this unusual trait. What used to be a source of fear now serves as your shield. It's not paranoia, it's precision. The challenge now is learning to balance it. Your radar is a gift, but it doesn't need to run at full power 24/7. The key is practicing mindfulness and self-awareness so you can turn the volume down when you're in safe environments. Otherwise, you'll burn out from analyzing problems that don't exist. So, while this trait began as a survival mechanism, it can evolve into a life-changing strength, one that helps you navigate relationships, careers, and challenges with unmatched clarity. Trait 2. The Shapeshifter Mask. The second unusual trait is what I call the shapeshifter mask. Children of narcissistic parents grow up in an unpredictable emotional minefield. One wrong word, one misplaced look, and boom, the whole house could explode in anger, guilt trips, or icy silence. To survive, you learned to adapt, to become whoever your parents needed you to be in that moment. You weren't just a kid, you were a performer, a peacekeeper, a chameleon. Around your mother, maybe you played the role of the perfect angel, never questioning her authority. Around your father, maybe you became the overachiever, bringing home trophies and straight A's just to earn a sliver of praise. And when both parents were together, silence was your strategy. You learned to shrink yourself so you wouldn't light the match that set off another explosion. At first, it's just survival, but over time, something deeper happens. You start to lose sight of who you really are. This mask becomes so second nature that you don't even realize you're wearing it. You walk into a room, scan the vibe, and instantly morph into the version of yourself that will keep the peace. Funny around some people, quiet around others, ambitious at work, chill with friends, even when none of those versions reflect your true feelings. And here's where it gets scary. You can get so good at this performance that other people think they know you, but they don't know a damn thing. They're just seeing a reflection of what they want, not the real you. The upside? This gives you insane adaptability. You can walk into almost any environment, a corporate boardroom, a noisy nightclub, a church choir, a back alley hangout, and blend in like you've been there your whole life. You know how to connect with people because you've spent years studying their expectations and meeting them flawlessly. It's the same skill that helps actors, leaders, and negotiators succeed. You're basically a social chameleon, and people are naturally drawn to you because you make them feel comfortable. But the dark side, sometimes you stare in the mirror and think, who the hell am I when nobody's watching? You might realize you've spent so much time becoming what others need that you've lost touch with what you need. Here's a painful example. You're out with friends, and everyone wants to go to a certain restaurant. Deep down, you hate that place. But instead of speaking up, you smile and say, "Sounds great." Later, you go home feeling drained and resentful, wondering why no one seems to care about your preferences. The truth? You never gave them a chance because you were too busy keeping the peace. And it doesn't stop there. This trait often leads to people-pleasing. You bend, adjust, and shrink yourself just to make sure no one gets upset. Even in adult relationships, you might find yourself apologizing for things that aren't your fault or agreeing to things you don't want just to avoid conflict. Here's where it gets really ironic. You've probably pulled off some Oscar-worthy performances pretending you're fine while internally your mind is staging World War III. You could win awards for how convincingly you hide your feelings. The savage truth? This mask helped you survive as a kid, but now, as an adult, it keeps you from living authentically. It robs you of deep, honest relationships because people can only connect with the version of you that you allow them to see. So, what's the solution? You don't rip the mask off in one dramatic moment. That's too scary, too overwhelming. You peel it away slowly, piece by piece, moment by moment. It starts with small acts of honesty, saying, "Actually, I don't like that restaurant," or "I'm upset right now," or even, "I need time for myself." These tiny moments of truth are terrifying at first because they risk rejection, but over time, they lead to freedom. You begin to discover that the real you, the one underneath all the performances, is far more magnetic than any mask you've worn. One story comes to mind. A man I once met grew up with a narcissistic mother who constantly criticized him. As a kid, he learned to be the perfect son, never complaining, always performing. As an adult, he carried that mask into his marriage, always being the agreeable, easygoing husband. But deep down, he was miserable. When he finally started speaking his truth, just little things at first, his wife didn't leave him like he feared. Instead, their relationship grew stronger because for the first time, she was meeting the real him. The mask didn't just hide his pain, it had been blocking his ability to be truly loved. The ultimate lesson? The shapeshifter mask is both your shield and your prison. It kept you safe as a child, but if you keep wearing it forever, it will suffocate you. The bravest thing you can do isn't to keep adapting. It's to stand still and say, "This is me. Take it or leave it." Trait 3. The relentless survival drive. The third unusual trait is what I call the relentless survival drive. This isn't just about working hard or chasing success. It's about pushing yourself like your very life depends on it, because in a way, it once did. Growing up with narcissistic parents teaches you that failure is dangerous. Mistakes weren't just mistakes, they were proof you weren't good enough. Rest wasn't rest, it was laziness. Showing weakness? That was basically inviting someone to crush you. So you adapted the only way you knew how. You worked harder, stayed sharper, and never let your guard down. This created a work ethic most people can't even imagine. As an adult, you'll outlast almost anyone. When others quit, you keep going. When chaos hits, you stay calm, because chaos is where you learn to breathe. But there's a dark side. You don't always know when to stop. You treat burnout like it's just part of who you are. Even when your body is begging for rest, your brain whispers, "Keep going. If you slow down, you'll lose everything." That relentless voice pushes you to achieve incredible things, but it also robs you of peace. You might have the job, the house, the recognition, yet still feel like it's never enough. Here's the truth. Surviving isn't the same as living. No one ever taught you how to rest, to celebrate wins, to feel joy without scanning for the next threat. Your survival drive can build empires, but it can also leave you empty if you never give yourself permission to slow down. When you look back, you'll see how these three unusual traits, your emotional radar, your shape-shifting mask, and your survival drive, were all forged in the fire of a childhood you didn't choose. They can either destroy you or make you unstoppable. The difference comes down to one thing: whether you let your past define you or you turn it into fuel. You didn't just survive narcissistic parents, you walked through a battlefield and came out carrying weapons most people don't even know exist. You're not broken, you're forged. So the next time someone doubts you, don't waste energy trying to prove you're enough. You already proved it the moment you kept going when others would have given up. Now it's time to do more than just survive. Turn down the radar when you're safe, peel back the mask, and show the world who you really are. Give yourself permission to rest, to play, to live, because life doesn't have to be another battlefield anymore. And if no one's told you this before, let me be the first. You've already done the hardest part. Everything from here is growth.